And following on in the series of answering some frequently asked questions, we're going to talk about the question which is often approached to me: how can I protect my home from being used to fund my care? We've already discussed in a previous blog about deliberate deprivation of assets, so this isn't about that today. We must assume that you are doing this for a reason which is not deliberate deprivation of assets, but we're looking at the mechanics of how it works. So we're going to take a couple and we're going to take a single person. So let's look at why the situation is unfair. If we have an individual who has assets under £14,250, then they will get full funding from the local authority for their care. If we have an asset who has assets above £23,250, then they will pay for all of their care until such time as their assets fall below £14,250. Now clearly someone with a property is going to be significantly above that higher threshold, and therefore it is, in our opinion, and certainly in the opinion of many folk, completely unfair that an individual should have to, right now, lose the majority of their assets, and certainly in most cases all of their home, to be put in the same position as somebody who has already got assets under the £14,250 threshold. Now that individual could be under the threshold because they've spent all their assets in their lifetime. It could be that they've never had assets above £14,250. But it certainly makes it a bitter pill to swallow for those individuals that have worked hard all their lives and saved up enough money to be able to afford their property, which they rightfully want to leave to their children. A lot of people find it an absolute bugbear to be sitting in a home and getting the same breakfast and lunch and dinner and accommodation as somebody sitting next to them who has not paid anything and they've had to lose their home because of it. So I'm going to show you how it's done. So if you are a couple, you will sever the tenancy of your property, or rather we will do that for you. That makes you tenants in common. Why? Because if one of you passes away without doing this, the survivor will own all the property, and that means that if they were then to go into care after they'd had their assessment from the local authority, it would be clear that their asset base would be above £23,250. Now, if we sever the tenancy and we put both of those halves into trust right now, always bearing in mind the rules along deliberate deprivation of assets, then going forward, the property does no longer belong to an individual. It belongs to the trust, and in fact the trustees of that trust, and therefore legally it cannot be taken into consideration for care home fees as part of your estate, again so long as it wasn't done so for deliberate deprivation of assets. So going forward, it's a very simple process, and in general, if you ask our opinion, it is worth doing, because it is better to do it than not to. And going forwards, it is the value of your property that you're looking at, typically 250,000 plus, versus the fee for doing it, typically on its own, to £2,500. So financially it makes sense to do it. Now if you're a single person, there is no reason for any form of severance of tenancy. You just simply place it straight into the trust, and again always making sure that you're not falling foul of deliberate deprivation of asset rules. But going forward, so long as the property is in trust and it has been done in a sufficient time frame before going into care, there's no specific time on this, but it's about logic. Obviously if you did it and went into care within 6 months, I suspect they'd probably look at it. If it was more like 2 or 3 years, then it probably wouldn't be an issue. But again, we can go through these things with you. We can give you the right advice. I love the internet, I love Google, but it also can be an absolute nightmare when you go on there and you are given conflicting advice, you're given misinformation, and also in some cases certain things like a 7-year rule suddenly get swept up in this, which has nothing to do about this particular case. That's to do with inheritance tax, but a lot of people believe that it doesn't apply for 7 years. So if you want the facts, if you want the truth, you want to know exactly how to do it, and you want the nuts and bolts of what it's going to cost, then you know where to come. It's Thy Will Be Done, 46 Goring Road, and that's in Worthing. You can give us a call on 01903 649 021, or alternatively look on the website www.thywill.co.uk.